We can always operate from a place of fear, or we can operate from a place of love.
Mm-hmm.
And people may say, well, what is that? But the simple question to ask yourself whenever you are doing anything in your work or even at home is, am I coming from a place of love or fear? Whether you're having conversations with people at work or conversations with people at home, or you have a certain perspective on something, right? Ask yourself, is that coming from fear or is that?
Welcome to another episode of the peopleHum interview series. I'm your host Akanksha Kulkarni, and let's begin with a quick introduction of peopleHum. peopleHum is an end-to-end, one-view integrated human capital management automation platform, the winner of the 2019 Global Cody Award for HCM that is specifically built for crafted employee experiences. We run the peopleHum blog and the video channel, which receives upwards of 200,000 visitors a year and publish around 2 interviews with well-known names globally every month. And now for our guest, Dr. Ginny A Baro is an international motivational speaker and leadership coach, career strategist, and #1 best-selling author of Fearless Women at Work. She specializes in helping organizations develop inclusive, impactful leaders and partner with leaders navigating a corporate hierarchy or moving into an entirely new phase of their career. We are extremely happy and honored to have her on our interview series today. Welcome, Ginny. We are thrilled to have you.
Thank you, Akansha. It's my pleasure to be with you.
So, let's just start with the interview. And the first question that I would like to ask you is, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your journey so far that brought you to being a leadership coach?
Sure. Thank you so much. Listen, one of the things that I always teach my clients and my audience when I speak, my leaders, is that when we, as leaders, we need to engage people.
Yeah.
So telling stories is one of my favorite things in the world. And I usually start all of my talks by sharing a quick story about where I come from, because I believe that it helps us connect to each other and to really have a perspective as to why the person may be saying what they're saying, and it makes you curious about the other person. And typically, if I tell you all my facts about my degrees and all that stuff, it's going to go in one ear and out the other. But if I tell you a story about me, most likely you will remember. So anybody listening, what I'm recommending is that we really start to leverage the power of storytelling as leaders, so we can connect to our teams, to our organization, and connect the outside world to our organization too, by telling our organization story. When we do networking, when we are doing anything that has to do with any business related event, a panel, a talk, a conference, whatever the case may be. So very briefly, um, today I am what you described, a motivational speaker and a leadership coach, career strategist. And my job is to populate the world with great leaders.
Mm-hmm.
And I do that when I partner with organizations and I help them develop leaders at all levels of management. And I also work with individual people. But this only has been happening for the past, I want to say, 3.5 years. Before that, worked in corporate for over 26 years, and I was a leader for over 20 of those years. But before I came to the United States, I am an immigrant. I was born and raised in a little village near Haiti in Dominican Republic.
Oh.
My roots are, I come from a very poor background. And growing up, my parents were divorced. When I was 14 years old, my mom decided she was going to move to the United States and find a new way of life for us. I have two brothers, and it was the three of us. And my mom is it's a powerful woman, a fearless woman. And my grandmother was in the U.S., and my grandmother requested her. She got her visa, and she came by herself first to see what it would be like.
Mm-hmm.
And then she asked for me, and then she asked for my brothers little by little over the years. So when I was 14 years old, I came to the US and I had to start from scratch. So you would say that, when people look at you today and they say, oh, look at this person, look who she is, she's Dr. Ginny A Baro, they can make a lot of assumptions about you. And the truth is that until we really hear where people come from, we really don't know, do we?
Yeah.
So at 14, I arrived in the US. I had no English. I had to basically learn everything. I had no friends, the culture. And those 4 years of high school was where I really dug in and worked really hard to learn English, to create a new foundation of friends and a new network of people in my life. And my best friends were my mom and my dad. And it was my mother and my stepdad, who I call my dad because he really was, played the role of my father. And then after that, I graduated high school and I moved on to college to study computer science and economics. And I graduated and I began my full-time career at Prudential, working full-time as a programmer. And that was the genesis of my entire professional career. And then from there, I knew that I wanted to be a leader. So I got my MBA while working full-time. I went to school at night. And thankfully, I did have the luck to meet a lot of great leaders who were my managers.
Right.
And because of them and because of their belief in me, I was truly able to accomplish my dreams. I never knew anything about coaching. Had I known that there were coaches out there, and I'm not even sure that there were coaches back in 1991, but had I known that there were coaches available who could have done for me what I do for my clients now, I would have hand downs gotten myself a coach, because I believe that there's so much that we don't know that we don't know.
Yeah.
And now that coaches are so much more popular, I mean, almost every organization has a list of coaches that they work with. I would highly recommend to any leader who wants to take their leadership to the next level to consider the possibilities and the benefits of working with a coach, because that's exactly what all my clients are doing. And the trajectory and the acceleration of their careers is incredible. In addition, not only to what they see physically in terms of promotions or doing work that they truly love, but how they feel, how they're showing up, how they're truly going after their own potential. So that's a little bit of a journey of how I became a coach. After 26 years, I had a choice to stay with corporate or to start my own business. And that's when I decided that it was time to reach my potential. And I decided to start my own business, Fearless Women at Work. And then I also started Executive Bound with the goal of populating the world with great leaders.
That's a wonderful journey that you've had and an interesting background as well. So I guess that has also helped you to come through, in this industry as such and take your stand and become the leader that you are now.
Yeah, thank you.
So moving on to our next question that I would like to ask you is, do you believe women more than men need a mentor to succeed in leadership?
You know, there's such a huge conversation around mentors and sponsors when it comes to women. And I have to tell you that I believe that everybody needs mentors and sponsors. And most people don't know the distinction. So I'm going to take 1 second to make that distinction. So a mentor is someone who is going to show you the ropes, somebody that you really trust. You can tell them about just about anything.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of trust between the two of you. There's a camaraderie, a rapport. A sponsor is someone who is in a more senior role,
Mm-hmm.
who can give you an assignment, who can say, I want Ginny to lead this initiative.
Yeah.
Sometimes, depending on how high in the corporation you are, in the company, your sponsor and your mentors could be the same person.
Mm-hmm.
And that happened to me many times because I reported to the director, I reported to this chief information officer. So my sponsor was also my mentor. And whether you're a woman or a man, we need to build those relationships, because most of us, unfortunately, happen to be transactional. We
Right.
transact with people. I need this, you give me that report, I'll give you this. And to me, success in business and as a leader is not simply in transacting with other people, but is in building relationship and building connections with other people. I mean,
Correct.
if somebody calls you on the phone that you hardly know and asks you for a favor or asks you to do something, you could do it because you play your cards right and you're like, should I really stop what I'm doing to help this person? And you think about, who is this person, right? There's a lot that goes into that decision, to be realistic. However, if this person that picked up the phone and called you is somebody that you have a relationship with, a professional relationship with, it's going to be a very different conversation.
Right.
So it's important to build relationships with mentors and sponsors and not to make it like this official conversation of, would you be my mentor? Because if you called me and say, Ginny, could you be my mentor? I will cringe. Like, I don't have time to be your mentor, although I would love to. So instead, what I always tell my clients is to look for mentors and sponsors organically. And the way that works is that you reach out to me, right? And I have a question, or you have a question for me and say, hey, Ginny, I have a question for you. Do you have 10 minutes? Right. Anybody can give you 10 minutes. After they talk on the phone with you and you ask them a legitimate question about something legitimate, you can say, do you mind if I get in touch with you in a few weeks and we touch base again and check in? And the person may be like, sure, let's do that. That's how you create organic mentor and sponsor relationships. And it's all about being curious about the other person. Get curious about this person that you're trying to connect with. What are they into? Look at their LinkedIn profile. Look at their background. Look where they worked before. Look where they went to school. And find things to connect with them about that. And that's how the relationship develops organically versus forced. Would you be my sponsor? Would you be my mentor? The answer is no, I don't have time. Usually when we look at a mentor or sponsor, we're thinking, what am I going to get out of it? Well, think about it. What are they going to get out of it? So make it so that by looking at their background and getting curious about them, you can also come to the table with an offering. I read this article from McKinsey & Company. I thought you might find it interesting based on the fact that you published this or that on LinkedIn. So make an effort to also offer your mentor, your sponsor, the person that you're trying to build a relationship with, something, so that you're not only taking, but also giving.
Right. That was a wonderful answer to that question. And Ginny, the next question that I would like to ask you is, every business leader has, one goal: to foster a productive work environment, right? So unfortunately, many of them fall short. So can you tell us why does that happen? And with that also, can you tell us how to develop a long-term strategy to achieve these goals?
Yes, well, that's a really nice assumption, right? That everybody who's a leader is out there looking to foster a productive, inclusive work environment. Unfortunately, we know that that's not the case. When we look at the world today, we can see that there are many people that are not on that level, right?
Right.
And that's okay, because everybody's wherever they're at. We look at everyone with compassion and without judgment. However, one of the things that I focus on when I do my coaching and my leadership training is that, to me, everything starts with self-leadership. Self, capital S, leadership. And people may say, well, self-leadership, what is that? Well, self-leadership is when you're able to lead yourself powerfully, with integrity, intelligently, strategically. And then you take that and you externalize it to the people around you and to your team. So the main problem that I see with leadership today is that our leaders themselves haven't received, in many cases, the right tools and skill sets to be leaders, to lead and motivate and inspire their teams and engage their teams.
Right.
So if I'm trying to do that and I don't know how to do it myself, how am I going to be a good leader if I don't have the right tools? And that's why I am committed to helping leaders gain those tools that they need. So self-leadership, it's about leading from a place of your highest self. Now,
Right.
just me saying that, there may be people going, what is that? Leading from your highest self, right? Your highest self, the way that I best describe it is, imagine that you alone are an orchestra. Inside of you, your psyche has many different parts, many different aspects of who you are. But you, with this orchestra, are the orchestra director. Your highest self is the orchestra director. When you are operating and leading from your highest self, you are able to zoom out and look at the big picture. And when problems come up, when conflicts come up, when there is a problem to be solved by your team, when a customer blows up, right, and you have a big problem in your hands, when a sales deal goes sideways, that's when you harness your highest self to zoom out, look at the biggest picture and see what is the best constructive action that I can take here. You can only do that when you're not operating from fear.
Correct.
And when you think about most of us as leaders, we're usually operating from some level of fear. Fear of getting fired, fear of not being liked, fear of people not thinking you know what you're doing, fear of not having the right answers, fear of not meeting the quotas, fear of not, pleasing the stakeholders. Usually we're coming from a place of fear. And so harnessing your self-leadership, it implies that you're going to come at situations from your highest self and be able to step back and see that there's a part of you that's fearful and question that part of you and say, what are you afraid of, right? And it could be very legitimate that there's some real things to focus on. And at the same time, by following our fear, we may not be the best leaders at that moment.
Right.
And so it's a big answer to a simple question, but the answer is to truly harness your self-leadership. And that doesn't happen overnight, number one, and it doesn't happen by yourself, number two. If you don't know how to do something, you can't give yourself a good haircut. So even as a coach, I have coaches because I can see certain things that my coach can see in me. So it's almost like having that mirror that allows you or enables you to be yourself, and for them to help you to say, okay, so this is what I noticed. I noticed that there's a part of you that is operating from this place. And then digging in to see where does that come from. And it's that self-healing that needs to happen in order for our leaders to truly thrive. So we need to heal leadership from my perspective. And the way we do it is one leader at a time.
That's a wonderful thing to say, one leader at a time. And also, I think fear sometimes holds us back to take those decisions, to take those necessary steps, which are important, which you might think that might change something, but you are thinking about all these other things. What would happen rather than thinking about the big picture? So thank you so much for that. And the next thing that I would like to ask you is, what do you think are the matters leadership should keep in perspective while setting organizational goals?
There's so many factors, right? So I always say that one of the biggest factors is always the people,
Right.
And I know peopleHum believes in that wholeheartedly. There's what I always call the tactical aspect of the decision, and then the strategic aspect of the decision. As leaders, unfortunately, sometimes we have to make very tough decisions, and we still have to make them even though they're tough. And I believe that one of the keys to being successful in making, whether it's tough or easier decisions, is to have transparency and to communicate. Yeah. When people understand where you're coming from and they can see the rationale behind a decision, people are very smart. We don't give people enough credit. And when we are able to provide the rationale as to this is the reason why I make this decision in this particular way, that people can then digest that a lot better than if they're just told this is what we're doing. And I'm speaking about the times, especially now in this global crisis, where a lot of companies may have to downsize. Mm-hmm. We may have to let go of people that we truly believe in and love, quite frankly, because the people that we work with, it's that, they're not just a number. These are people that we are working shoulder to shoulder with day in and day out, solving problems, creating results for our organization, growing, expanding, going through successes and failures together. So it's never easy to make decisions like that. However, when we think about the people aspect of the decision and think about strategically what is right for the organization and its people and its clients and the stakeholders, right? Yes. And when we think about the tactical aspect of the decision, how are we going to actually implement this particular decision that we made, that it's including all of those factors that is going to help you make a holistic decision that's going to serve the highest good of the organization and its people and stakeholders.
Right. I really, really like this answer of yours. Leaders are supposed to be, they are supposed to be nurtured as well. The employees are supposed to be nurtured. There are leaders in our employees as well. So if we spot that, that's going to be a really good thing for them. Yeah. So, what are the habits do successful managers practice when it comes to employee engagement?
Well, employee engagement is not as hard as people make it out to be. The problem is what we already spoke about
Mm-hmm.
when we are relational versus transactional.
Correct.
When you are transacting with your team and you don't get to know them on a personal level, and I don't mean getting nosy, right? Like finding out things about a person that they don't want you to know. I'm not talking about that. But when we transact in our day-to-day versus relate,
Mm-hmm.
build relationships in our day-to-day, that's going to make the biggest difference in whether we are engaging our employees or not.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter whether you're running a call center or whether you're managing programmers or whether you are managing a creative team of marketers. It doesn't really matter the context. I think that every leader in any industry and context has an opportunity to connect with their team. And we do that by being human. We do that by following the golden rule, do unto others, right? So if you have a team of however many people, you should be able to know who they are, what they do, right? What their background is. Connect with them on some human level. Before your meetings, say hello to people. If they have a family, how's your family doing? My dad was the kind of guy that people loved. He was so personable. And everybody that he worked with loved him because my father, the first question he would ask is, how's your family doing? Who doesn't love to be asked, how's your family doing? I mean, that is such a nice, warm question, right?
Yeah.
So when you get to know people that you're working with on a human level and understand what they're about, their why, their unique value, because you see them working. So you have their resume, you know their superpowers
Right.
because you either hire them or you inherited them, right, through somebody else who hired them. So get to know them and also appreciate them. When you appreciate your employees and you simply let them know, Ginny, thank you for that thing that you created. Thank you for putting that meeting together. Great way to run that meeting. And some people think that I hired her to do that. Of course she has to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we were all hired to do a job, but we all have human needs. The need for connection, the need for significance, the need for certainty and variety and contribution and growth. So why not use this opportunity that we have of being with our teams to connect with them and help them meet their human needs at work, because we're there for at least 8 hours, whether it's remote or live. And I think that's the opportunity that many of us are missing, to connect with people. And that's how we engage them. And by engaging them, let me tell you something. I would do anything legal for my managers because I built a connection and a relationship with them. I knew them. I knew their families. We got together at work for whatever, after work events. There was a relationship, not a transaction.
Right.
Same thing with my teams. And when that is the case, it's a much happier place to work at. And I know that may sound, a little, out there, but there's nothing wrong with enjoying your workplace and enjoying the people that you're working with. Especially, there's all kinds of people, quirky people, introverts, extroverts, the weirdo, the crazy one. There's always one of everything in every group. And it's so fascinating to me because we don't all have to be the same. That would be so boring, right? But let's embrace that diversity and let's make sure that we're all productive, that we're all working on the same agenda. And I think that is the beauty of being a leader, that you get to orchestrate this beautiful group of people that are, very different. And yet we're all working towards the same goal because your leader is able to communicate your mission and your purpose as a team. And everybody gets on board, regardless of their background, what they look like, and all of those things that supposedly make us different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's just a small question of how are you would go a really long way. and just recognizing your employees for the work that they do, and also building a relationship with them, not just for work, but outside of work as well, so that your work goes smoothly. So that can
Exactly.
impact. So that's a beautiful thing that you told us. Thank you for that. And I would like to ask you, like, though we have millennials and we have Gen Z now. So they make up a significant portion of the workforce, right? So what is your advice to the leaders and organizations as such for effectively engage with them, these generations?
Well, everything that I said before. And the one thing that is also so helpful is that as leaders, we tend to be very set in our own ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that to be a nimble and agile leader, which if we're not, we're going to be dinosaurs and we're going to be extinct, is that we, in that engagement that we do of our teams, as we get to know them, we need to really get ideas from them too, right? Because me, who's been in industry for 30 years, may think of, oh, let's do it this way because that's how I've been doing it for 30 years. But if I'm working with a younger generation that has different ideas, different thoughts, different preferences, what about if I actually ask? I'm planning on doing this. And I was thinking about this. What do you guys think? And when I say guys, I don't mean just guys, I mean everybody, right? What do you think? And then get ideas from people, and they may come up with ideas of how to engage the group in a way that I would have never thought about. So what I would say to leaders is that we need to be humble, and we need to realize that we know what we know and we don't know what we don't know.
Right.
And that no matter how old we are, there's always room for learning and there's always room for growing. And when we, bring people into the fold, regardless of their age, and I mean this very seriously when it comes to the younger generation and the older generation,
Mm-hmm.
because what we do is we marginalize the extremes. We marginalize the people who've been working for years and are in their 50s and 60s, and we marginalize the younger generation, and we basically chuck them up to they're too old and they don't know what they're doing.
Right.
And when we do that, we don't leave room for curiosity, and we exclude people, which is the opposite of what we should be doing as leaders, which is to be inclusive. So I would say, let's not forget to ask across the spectrum, because the older generation has a wealth of knowledge that, as long as, and this is my advice to the older generation, is to stay curious. Let's stay curious about what is happening, what the younger generation is doing, how they're doing it. Let's be open-minded about it. And the younger generation, I want you to know that the older generation has a wealth of wisdom to share with you. Get curious about what they did, how they got there, because the golden nuggets that they can share with you will prevent you from making mistakes later that you can prevent.
Mm-hmm.
And that perhaps could accelerate your career and help you grow in your own career. So let's not be dismissive of each other, is my recommendation. And let's be inclusive. And all it requires is curiosity, and for us to stay humble, to realize that there's a lot of stuff I don't know, and there's there are a lot of things that they know that I don't know, that I could benefit from.
Right.
And that's the beauty of staying open-minded and having that growth mindset where you believe that people and abilities could improve.
Mm-hmm.
And we do that by embracing that growth mindset.
Right. So these are like the two endpoints. Both of them need to be curious enough and they need to be genuine. So that to be even I have
Absolutely.
that genuinity to ask the question, like, I don't know this. Can you just help me out? Or how can I do this? Can you lead me through this? So these questions and those are really important.
And Akansha, what that brings up too is vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it requires both parties and even the people in between to be vulnerable. People think, oh my goodness, I don't want to ask, because if I ask, one, they're going to know that I don't know, right? Two, what are they going to say? That I'm inadequate, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to be exposed. Well, guess what? Here's the one thing that I can help the audience reframe asking for help with. Normally, we're very hesitant to ask for help. And as I mentioned before, one of the human needs is to contribute. Contribution is one of the 6 human needs. Everybody loves to contribute on some level. Some people more than others. And you know that because we love to help people, right?
Yeah.
Some people actually choose careers because they want to help people. When you ask someone for help, you are giving them a window to contribute to you.
Yeah.
So instead of thinking, oh, I don't want to ask because I'm going to be bothering, Akansha, instead I'm going to say, you know what, I need help with this. Let me ask Akansha, and she will be meeting her need for contribution.
Right.
And if she wants to help me, she will. And if she doesn't want to, she won't. But you will be surprised how many times we ask for help and the person's more than happy to help us. And we also, I mean, when you think about it, when somebody asks you for something that you know, don't you feel like, yeah, I'll show you that?
Yeah.
Because it also gives you significance, believe it or not. When somebody asks you for help, it gives you significance, which is one of the human needs.
Right.
So being vulnerable and asking for help, and if normally you're hesitant to ask for help at work, I guarantee you that you're hesitating to ask for help at home too. And over time, you start to feel exhausted and burnt out because you have it all on your shoulders and you're doing it all. And it's nobody's fault but your own. And I say that with love and kindness. And it's because you're not asking for help enough.
Yeah.
So we have to open up to receive. And that's something that's really hard for us working, especially in the workplace, because being open to receiving and asking for help may not seem something that's welcomed. And I can say that growth is waiting for you in asking for help and being open to receive that help.
Right. So the embarkment of being on this journey to be where you want to be starts with a question, just a simple question. If you start with that, and if you just hold back, it'll just circle back to fear, what you mentioned earlier. If you hold on to that fear, you're not going to get anywhere. You're just not going to go forward with it.
You're not going to go forward. Exactly.
Yeah. So that was really wonderful, Ginny. And just to sum up this interview, lastly, I would just, do you have any important sound bites that you would like to leave our audience with?
Look, there's so much happening right now in the world. There's so much happening here in the US for us. And the only last words that I want to leave everybody with is that we can always operate from a place of fear, or we can operate from a place of love.
Mm-hmm.
And people may say, well, what is that? But the simple question to ask yourself whenever you are doing anything in your work or even at home is, am I coming from a place of love or fear?
Right.
Whether you're having conversations with people at work or conversations with people at home, or you have a certain perspective on something, right? Ask yourself, is that coming from fear or is that coming from love? And I guarantee you that we're going to catch ourselves so many times going at things from a place of fear.
Mm-hmm.
And then the question to ask yourself, an empowering question, is, what would coming from love look like? And if we do that, asking ourselves that simple question, love or fear, and then saying, what would love look like? I think this place will be a much better place and much more loving place to be in.
Right. I completely agree with you. And I just thoroughly enjoyed our conversation today. And you really are a phenomenal person. And thank you so much for being with us today in our interview series. I would wish you all the health and happiness ahead in your time. And let's keep connected in the future too.
Thank you, Akansha. I really appreciate it. And if anyone who's been listening to our interview is interested in connecting with me or learning more about my programs, they can visit executivebound.com.
Definitely. I would recommend all the audience who are watching that just they should really check out your profile on LinkedIn as well. You are wonderful. Your content is amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And you stay safe, stay healthy,
You
and
too.
we see each other again someday.
That sounds wonderful. Take care.
Yeah.